So we're going to jump back in. First of all, did anyone not get a ticket to the baseball game tonight? Cool. We're going to talk about finding motivation. I mentioned earlier today, when you're able to do this and really drill down hard, you can be pretty poor at everything else. It just gives you a lot of leeway. It allows you to really close a lot of deals that otherwise wouldn't have been closed. So finding motivation. We talk a lot about motivation in this business, like almost every lead sheet, right? What's their motivation? Or when we talk to each other about deals, what's their motivation? But I want to take it today a lot deeper because a lot of people have quote unquote motivation, but a lot of salespeople aren't able to really leverage that motivation into action. Is that fair to say? You know, sometimes we hear this, hey, they've got motivation. Then we'll run into someone with that same quote-unquote motivation, but they don't take action. And the question is, why does this person take action when this person doesn't take action, and then they're in the exact same situation? So what we want to do is uncover what is the real motivation, and how do we get that person to the spot where they're ready to take action, where they're yearning to take action. And then all you have to do is remove those obstacles that are in their way. So we started off with the advance agreements, setting the stage for this conversation. We're going to go a little deep during this conversation, so we want to make sure everyone's calm. This really plays into this industry quite well because you want to build some rapport up front so we can start asking about motivation. When we're talking about motivation, sometimes things get a little personal. I mean, how many people have had sellers break down and cry during a sales call? Right? It happens. This is a very personal thing. And in order to get that deep, we've got to have some trust and some rapport built. So we want to start with advance agreements. And then as we get through the whole sales call, what I'm going to usually recommend is something at this point where you can build that rapport and just take 10 or 15 minutes to get to know your prospect. Usually, if it's on site, this is the walkthrough of the home. No other industry in the world has a sales process set up like yours. That it's just, you have this rapport building space built into your process where you have to walk the home. Even if you're doing it over the phone, I would find a series of questions to ask or something like that so you can talk to your prospect and build rapport. We'll talk more about how to build that rapport exactly, but it's fantastic in your world because in most sales scenarios that I'm in, you want to build that rapport up front, but it's extremely awkward because the prospect wants to get right into, okay, what can you do for me? And you sit down. And if you try to build rapport, it can be frustrating for the prospect because they want to get down to business. They're like, don't waste my time. Let's get down to it. But in your world, you get to walk a property, and it gives you time to chit-chat and really make a friend during that point. So it's wonderful. Then we're going to dive into motivation and urgency. So that's where we're at right now, just to kind of zoom out and then zoom back in into where we're at. And what we're really looking for is why would this person do business with you? Why would they sell you a house? And I guarantee what you think it is probably isn't what it is. Usually the reason they give you up front is never the real reason why they're selling. And you know this because you usually walk the houses you buy, you walk in, and while you're selling, they give you one thing. 45 minutes into it, it's totally different. There's a situation you never heard about. There's these family dynamics you had no idea about. But once you get there, it gets a lot easier, right? So what's the intent of this step and why is it important? If you don't have this motivation, if you can't get your prospect to understand why they would take action, then they won't take action. You see, many of your prospects, many sellers out there, they know they have a problem. They know they need to sell a house. But they've never actually consciously articulated what this problem, what this house is doing to them. So someone might have a house, for example. They might not be able to afford it anymore, right? And all they'll think is, I can't afford the house, I got to sell it. Simple, right? And have any of you been in that situation, but they still don't sell the house? Right? You know they need to sell, they know they need to sell, but they don't sell. This is because it's surface layer motivation. It's not deep enough. You didn't get them really emotionally involved. So when we get prospects like that, what we're going to do is drill down deep, not so we know what their true motivation is, but so they know. We're going to get them to a point so they can go, yeah, I can't afford the house, and that's causing this, and that's causing this. And because of that, I feel like this, and this sucks, and this sucks, and this sucks, and that's why I got to sell. Until they're face-to-face with what that property is actually doing to them, how it's impacting their life, until they start to feel that, they're going to be reluctant to take action, right? But how many of you can agree with that? That sometimes, until we solve a problem, we don't know how much that problem was even affecting our lives. Who's been through something where maybe it's even losing weight, right? So when I was in my early 20s, I worked out a lot and did that kind of stuff. And I went from 135 pounds to 270 pounds. And I stayed at about 270 pounds for 2 or 3 years, right? And then I decided to slim down and kind of get in shape. I mean, I really let myself, I was too big, right? And I got back into shape, and I got down to about 180, 185. And I didn't realize how miserable I was for years being 270. It hurt, right? My joints ached, all this stuff happened, and I didn't realize that life sucked and I was miserable until I realized it. That's the same with a lot of your prospects. They know they got a problem, they got something to do, they got a house to sell, but you've got to show them. You got to force them to see what the impact really is, and once they start to see it and feel it for the first time, that's where motivation to take action lives. Does that make sense? Yep. It'll make more sense here in a second. We're really looking to determine if there's a problem or a pain or a want that exists that's compelling enough for them to take action. And everything we do past this point, this is our leverage. When we run into objections, we're going to overcome those objections real simple by bringing back up the pain and go, well, which is more important? Telling Aunt Susie, the realtor, she can't sell your house, or not sleeping on the couch anymore with your wife getting ready to leave you, with the pain of you not being able to, you haven't been to a soccer game in 2 years, right? And you get to that stuff. And you make that decision crystal clear, where your prospect says, I get it. And they start to overcome all their own objections. This is going to be our fuel for that. Now, again, we're going to get into, when we talk about emotion, it's not really this wishy-washy thing. There's real stuff that goes on biologically when we're making decisions about what's worth what and when we're comparing different options. We're not going to go too deep into that here, but I'll reference some of it as we go through. So I'm going to talk a lot about pain too as we talk about motivation. But that's not to say that the reason people sell their homes, it's all painful. It's not always a negative situation, right? When we make decisions to buy, to sell, to change anything, it's not always a negative situation, right? That's just the truth. But I'm going to talk about pain quite a bit. And the reason is, the way I want you to imagine pain when I use that term is pain is simply the distance between where someone is today and where they want to be. Pain can be brought on by negative things and positive things. Usually in this industry, it's negative, and usually negative factors will cause people to make decisions quicker because getting rid of a negative pain is a 2 to 3 times stronger response than going towards something positive. In other words, when you see studies that are done, people work 2 to 3 times harder to save a dollar they've already earned than to get a new dollar. It's too painful to lose one, but than it is to make one. So we're going to talk about opportunity or want, problem or frustration. Let me put this another way. Pain. There's 2 ways to get to pain. So one is someone's in a really negative situation and they want to get out of it. We see a lot of that, right? They're just in a bad situation and they want to get out of it. But what about all those sellers that are not in a bad situation? How many people do you run across where, hey, I'm fine, I'm okay. I got your letter though and I just kind of want to see what you do and that type of thing. The majority of them, right? That's the leverage. That's what I want to focus on now. Because the people who are already in a high state of pain, they're pretty easy sales, right? When you're in a lot of pain, you will do almost anything to get rid of that pain, right? The example I like to use is, it was a fictional example until 3 or 4 months ago. I had 4 kids at the time. I've got 5 kids now. One of them's a 2-year-old with a pretty severe peanut allergy, okay? And I bitch all the time about the cost of my health insurance, okay? Complain, probably everyone in this room, right? It's too expensive, okay? Pay almost $2,000 a month for health coverage. I don't want to spend another dime. When I go to the store to buy my kids medicine, it's the cheap stuff, right? If they need cough syrup, not spending $10 for a bottle of cough syrup. I don't even think the stuff does anything, right? I'm going to get the $2 or the $3 Walgreens brand because I don't think it does anything. And also when my kids have a cough or something like that, whether I give them medicine or not, they're always better the next day. Have you guys seen that? Who all has kids? They always get better the next day, right? Whether you do anything or not. I think the whole cough syrup market's a sham, but that's another topic. But the point is this. When I buy that cough syrup, I'm not in a lot of pain, right? The kid's going to get better, whether I give it to him or not. So my whole decision is based on what's the cost of the cough syrup, right? I got nothing else to judge it by. Low pain, I'm making my decision on literally dollars and cents. Now, a few months ago, my wife and I were dropping a vehicle off to get serviced. We were going to go have a nice lunch together. The kids were at daycare, and we're in an Uber because we just dropped off my car to go lunch. And we get a phone call from the daycare. And the daycare said, well, Miles grabbed somebody's peanut butter sandwich and had a severe reaction. The paramedics are rushing him to the hospital. The police are here, blah, blah, blah. He's in the emergency room. So you get this vision of your 2-year-old who, and by the way, when they get the reaction, you've got to use one of those EpiPens, and the kid's 20 pounds, literally 20 pounds. You got to take this big needle and jab it into their thigh to get the medicine to him right away, okay? So he's 2, starts blowing up, can't breathe, bam, needle in the thigh. Paramedics show up at the daycare. They're rushing him off. Mom and dad's not around. We get a call, we're in an Uber. We don't have any control. We can't go anywhere. We're stuck in the back of an Uber. You know what that feels like? I mean, that's tough. You're thinking, what is this kid thinking? What is he experiencing? What's he feeling? He's in a world of pain right now and doesn't know what's going on. So we get to the ER. And at that point, I don't know what the ambulance bill ran. I don't know what this treatment was going to cost. Honestly, I don't care what they would have to do to get him okay again. How much do you think I would have paid if they said, John, you have to pay this dollar figure to make all this go away? Where do you think I would draw the line? There's no line. There's no line, right? When you're in a high state of pain, money loses all value. When you're trying to buy houses at deep discounts and haggling over dollars, where's your leverage? It's not increasing your offer, it's increasing the pain. Does that make sense? When you're talking about making pain go away, money loses all value. Is there anyone who disagrees with that? So what we focus on in our sales process is making the pain go away and throwing the money out the window. Your mediocre salespeople are just going to keep increasing offers. Sometimes you increase offers to more than what your prospects want, and they still don't sell to you, right? It happens. It's insane. So that's pain. Now, there's a positive side of pain, too, though. There's a positive side. The point so far is that when we feel a high sense of pain, money loses value. We just want it to go away. We make decisions to make it. But there's a positive side of pain. So how many of you, I know there's some of you in here. Where are the car guys again? So we got a few. And do we have some house guys? Who wants that big, beautiful house with the pool and the, I see the photos on Instagram and Facebook. I know they're out there, right? What else is there? What else are those dreams, right? Just tell me. Is it a farm? What is it? What are the dreams out there? Vacations. Bam, waterfront house in South Florida. Beautiful. What else is there?
Private pilot's license.
Private pilot or license. Okay. This is what I call the positive side of pain. When you want something so bad, it's painful that you don't have it. In my world, I'm happy with whatever car I'm in until I get into one I want more. Then I'm instantly motivated to make a change, right? How many of you, we all progress through our lives and our careers. And as we do, we always hit this point where I'm okay, right? My wife and I have built our dream house 3 times, right? 3 times, dream house, every one. Our newest one is 3 years old and we're looking, okay? You get there and you're completely content, and you're 100% happy until you see that there's something better on the other side. Until you're bored on one Sunday and you're looking at houses again, and you go, my gosh, we could have something like this. Imagine what life would be like this, with that pool in the back, and in this neighborhood. And I didn't even know you could do that to a shower, right? And then all of a sudden, where you were fine a second ago, 100% satisfied, now there's a drive in you to take action. So sometimes pain is a negative thing where you're trying to escape something bad. And sometimes we can create pain with our prospects, create an urgency to take action. If we can paint a vivid enough picture of what life could be, then all of a sudden, things get painful quick. And that's what we're going to talk about when we talk about getting prospects who are quote unquote fine to really wanting to take action. We don't create pain out of thin air, but we help them paint this vivid picture that once you've seen it, there's no going back. You know, when we were looking at, I told you I was looking at boats this last weekend. The guy's like, when it comes to boats, or really anything, you can always go up, but you can never go down. Once you've seen it and you got it, there's no going backwards, right? It's the same. In life, when you imagine what life could be like and you think you might be able to get there, and you start to paint that picture, and we all paint that picture. Think of the lottery. When the lottery gets to 4 or 5 billion or whatever, the 400 or 500 million, whatever the crazy numbers are. I don't personally play, but I know it gets nuts, right? We probably have some players in the room, nothing wrong with that. It's fun when it gets that high. But when it does get that high, what's everyone talking about? What are you going to do with the money, right? And now we know there's not a chance in hell any of us are going. Not going to happen, right? I don't know what the odds are, but you hear the odds, it's like, oh, it's 500 million, and you hear the odd, and it's like, there's a greater chance of you being plucked out of your home and live on a colony in Mars where you're farming hamburgers or something, right? It's like, it's not going to happen. But what happens is when we chat about it, we start painting that vivid picture of, well, I'd take this money and I'd do this. First, you got to give some to church, right? Because you don't want to seem like a jerk. I don't know if anyone does, but that's always everyone's first thing. I'm going to half away, right? That's the default answer. And then you start talking about the stuff you want to do with it. And you're like, well, I'd have a house here, I'd take grandma here, I'd finally buy my parents that house. Whatever your picture perfect scenario is, you start to paint that. And then the lotto comes, the numbers come out, and you don't win. And doesn't it sting a little bit? You knew you weren't going to win, but the more vivid of a picture you paint of what you are going to do with the money, or what you will do once you get that new job, or what life will be like once you lose the weight, get this certification, whatever it is, when you don't get it, that really hurts and that's painful. Does that all make sense? So prospects who are in pain, we're going to use what we're about to go over to get them out of pain. And prospects who are fine, we're going to paint such a compelling, vivid picture of what life could be like, it's going to be very painful that they're not living it right now and have the same motivation to take action. Are we all on board so far? So when you think about pain, think about it this way. This is an easy sale. They're in high pain. This is what we usually run into. I'm fine, just give me your offer. But we're not really looking for where people start out on this continuum. What I want you guys to start looking at when you're sizing up motivation, not where they start. They might be in high pain, but if you can only move them a little bit, that's really low motivation, right? All right, so life sucks now, and if I do business with you, it sucks a little less. How much motivation is that? It's not a lot, but most people would look at this and go, high pain, this person is going to do a deal with me. Now, this person starts out kind of in the middle at, I'm okay, but let's hear what you got. If you can get them that far, that's high motivation. So as you start looking at your prospects, don't look at where they start, high pain or low pain. That's not motivated or not motivated. It's how far can you paint that picture between where they are today and where they want to be. And if that is, I'll get to you in 1 second, if that's big enough, and they can feel where they are now and what that feels like, where they want to be and what that feels like, I don't care where they start, you have tremendous motivation. Most of you in this, every one of you in this room so far, or that are here today, I guarantee lives are good, right? Life is good. You probably make more money than most people in the United States. The majority of us are probably like top 1%, right? Top 5% minimum of the U.S. Probably have loving families. We all have our issues, but life's probably pretty good. But I bet you're not happy yet because you've got a vision of what can be and you're not there yet, and that's what's driving you guys. Is that fair to say? Yeah. You're not in high pain, but you're taking more action than most people in this country would. Is that fair to say? Yeah. That's why, okay? Because you have a vivid picture of where you could be, and you're not there, and it hurts like hell. Is that safe for me to say? I mean, is this ringing true? Yep. That's what we've got to do with our prospects. So we got a question in the back.
Yeah, just a quick example. I mean, how would you go from there to there? Can you run that down in 30 seconds, or is that coming up?
Coming up right now.
Never mind. Sorry.
I was just going to say, this, I've heard you say this before, but it just like registered with me in a way that it hadn't before, and like this alone is just so huge. To think of just not the pain part, but to think how far can I get them to the pleasure side of it, and that's where the sales happen.
And do they believe it?
And do they believe it? That right there was just worth the whole trip in my mind.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll throw that on a testimonial video. Check it, guys. So, let's get into the practical piece of this, okay? So, how do we find this pain? How do we figure it out? How do we get our prospects face-to-face with it? How do we get them to feel it? Well, there's a very logical way to do it. So a guy named Neil Rackham was a guy with a company called Huthwaite, and they were tasked with finding out why people buy stuff, how sales work. He wanted to dive into sales, so over 12 years and 35,000 sales calls, his team recorded sales calls, accompanied salespeople, basically logged every word, every question in sales calls in a wide variety of industries to see what was the cause and effect. Why did people buy when others didn't? And they expected to find a couple of things. They had some expectations just based on the common stuff that was around it, common knowledge in sales, right? Closing is how you get more deals. The good closers would get deals. The more aggressive people would get more deals. Ask open-ended questions. Those are the best questions to ask, will lead to better results. What they found out is all that was false. There's zero truth to it. Sounds great. Zero truth. In fact, one of their findings was the more times the salesperson tried to close a deal or asked for a close, the less likely they ever were to get it. So along this journey, they started logging everything, and they found out there were 4 types of questions salespeople asked in a very specific manner, and they spent very specific amounts of time on each type of question, and when they did that, it led to more and more sales. And when they got to what they call top performers, they all operated about the exact same. They focused on 2 types of questions and spent the vast majority of their time talking about those 2 types of questions or asking those 2 types of questions. And there's been subsequent studies that back up the type of questioning and why people make decisions, but basically, it's called spin selling. He wrote a book on it. And these were the 4 types of questions salespeople ask. Situational, which is just real basic. Like, hey, tell me about your situation, right? Tell me about your house. It's got 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. Situational is just bland, just very surface level. Then there were problem questions. Problem questions were questions like, what can I do for you? What made you pick up the phone and call us, right? Basically, what problem can I help you with? Now, these were good. Situational questions got people nowhere. I don't care if you asked 1 or 1,000, no increase in sales. They did nothing. They're required. You got to ask some situational questions sometimes just to see where you're at, right? We got to ask them. No impact on sales, though. Problem questions, a little bit of impact, right? When people actually brought up, what can I help you with? Then you started to see that needle move a little bit. What started to separate your average salespeople from those who were top performers were when they got into what he calls implication questions. Now, implication questions are this. Whatever your problem is, how's that impacting you personally? That's it. Very simple. Okay? What's your problem? I can't afford the house. All right, what's that mean? Well, it means I'm not going out to dinner, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this. Okay? What's that feel like? It feels like crap. Those are impact questions or implication questions. Okay? Your top performing salespeople spent about 2/3 of their sales calls asking implication questions or impact questions. Bottom half of those performers, they spent most of their time in problem questions, rarely got past them. Now, your really, really good performers, your top 1 or 2% in every industry across the board, They didn't stop with the impact questions. They finished it off with what's called a picture-perfect question. I call them picture-perfect questions. Needs payoff question. We'll get to that, is what Neil called them. But what that is paint me that picture. You'd ask a question or a series of questions into, well, what if this problem goes away? What if all that impact goes away? What's that like? And had them paint that picture of life and how they'd be impacted on a personal level if all those problems were gone. So your top performers, they lived in IN, implication and needs payoff. Now, I'm a pretty simple guy, so I needed to simplify that even more. 4 was too many, so I just call them problem, impact, and picture perfect. What's the problem? How's that impacting you? What if that didn't exist? What would that be like? Simple. That's the questioning strategy to get people from fine or from surface level pain into this hurts. Into, my previous life, I spent probably 15 years in the corporate world, selling IT infrastructure, hardware, managed services for companies like Cerner, and telecommunication services, bland, blah. Who wants to talk about telecommunications and personal pain? You would think the two never went with each other. But I stand corrected. I'm an AT&T customer, and it's horrible. It's very painful. But even there, I'd be in the offices with people from purchasing agents who are far removed from any type of emotion or feelings, and even far removed from any impact the business has if they make a right or wrong decision, all the way up to CEOs. And on many of our sales calls, when we got to personal pain, the tears started coming, right? With people like purchasing agents, it wasn't about, what's your Cisco 2900 series router cost versus this Cisco 2900 series router. It was, what if you make the wrong decision? I let my boss down. Why is that important? He's given me this chance when no one else did. What if you make a wrong decision? I don't get my bonus. What's that mean? Every Christmas comes from that bonus. Well, Christmas is still Christmas. The look on my kids' faces. What if you get the wrong router, right? Well, I don't get my raise. Well, what's that mean? Well, it means I've spent the last 5 years here gunning for this raise that I don't get. Well, what's that mean? It makes I feel like a failure. I mean, that's how we sold that stuff, for about 30% more than anyone else on the market for the exact same routers and hardware and other junk, right? It was personal impact, right? No matter what you do, it always is going to come down to personal impact. And then if you really want to make it sweet, you go to picture perfect. Well, if you got that raise, is that such a big deal? Yeah, that's a big deal. Why? It's a big deal for me, but why is it a big deal for you? You guys starting to see where I'm going with this? Yeah. You're painting the picture in your prospect's head of where they are right now, forcing them to confront what that actually feels like. And then you're showing the alternative and forcing them to articulate what that would feel like. And when you get to the end of that, problem, impact, picture, perfect questions over and over again, they have a very clear view of, I'm here and it's painful because I want to be here and I know what that can be like. And that's how you create motivation and urgency to take action. We all on board so far? Does this make sense? Is this kind of too out there, or can you feed into this? Can you relate this to your real life and how you make decisions and what you've done? I want to buy a boat. It makes no financial sense whatsoever. It's a horrible, horrible decision in every way. It's going to be a ton of work, and we have to tow it places. It's going to be a pain in the butt. It's going to cost a ton of money. It's going to be a hassle. You have you have to winterize and de-winterize those things. It's going to be a pain in my ass. I want that dang boat, though. You know why I want that boat? Because if something doesn't suck me out of work and make me go spend quality time with my family, I end up working. And you know what that feels like? Watching your daughters go from, babies to 11 to 12 and feeling like I'm disconnecting from them. I'm just making money. But pretty soon they're going to be out of the house. I'll just still be here making money. That's pain, right? So I'm going to go do something completely illogical so I can get rid of that pain, because that's going to force me to be out on the water with my kids, having a good time, taking some pictures, making some memories. That's my motivation. I know that going into it. I know it's a crap decision. But for me, financially, right? You must have a boat. So for me, that's my pain, and I can recognize it, right? And as my wife and I are walking through looking at these boats, I hear us justifying this purchase. You fit 15 people on this one. Like per person, that's almost nothing. This one, you don't even have to winterize it that early, so if spring comes early, we could take it and put it back, and then we're like, wait, finance it for 15 years. That's like nothing, right? And we're just logically just feeding ourselves this line of BS because we've already made the decision emotionally. I knew last week we were getting a boat, right? We're still going through that process of telling ourselves why it makes so much freaking sense. So I know it, but that's why I made the decision, not because a boat's a good investment, not because of anything like that. It's because I feel pain right now because I don't feel like I'm spending enough time with my kids, and I need to resolve that no matter what that costs. Can any of you guys relate to that? Was there questions or just saying yeah? Okay. I'm no different than any of you, and you're no different from any of your prospects. Question, Rich? You want to grab the mic?
At what point, if you're walking the house with, a potential seller, and you've built, rapport, do you sit them down and go through this process, or?
Yeah, so let me break this down real quick. So the last module on this, in our training, before we really get into the role-playing stuff, we're going to go through a perfect sales call beginning to end. So I'm going to say, first 5 minutes, this is what you do, this is what you say. Here's what you do, here's what you say. I'll give you the words. If you want to borrow my words, make them your own in the long term. Sometimes we just need training wheels until we find our own way. But I'll break that down piece by piece all the way through. We're just chunking it up right now to learn specific concepts. But at the end, that's why I want so much role play and so many activities, is so we can put it to use and apply it, right? Right now, it's going to be a little confusing. The deeper we get into it, it gets less confusing. When we get to put it all together and then start practicing, it's going to start to click. And we're going to start to go. So good question. People probably had the same question on their minds. So let's talk about problem questions because that's where it all starts. You can't get to pain, can't get to picture perfect, you can't get to impact if you have no starting place. So when we talk about problem questions, they're super simple. Any problem question you have is just, basically all it is you took some type of action, why? You called us off our postcard, why? You're considering selling your house. Why? Right? Thanks for clicking on our internet site and filling out the form. Why? Why'd you do it? That's a problem question. You're not always going to get the real problem, but you'll get something. Sometimes you'll just get what they think you hear typically, or what's something safe to say that they can say without being embarrassed and stuff like that, but it's a starting point. So all a problem question is you're telling your prospect, you've taken some action. Why? Right? Hey, you've let me in your house for more than 15 minutes. Why am I still here? That's where we start to get a glimpse into possible motivation. And then we could start to test, is there real motivation that lives here? And sometimes we got to test 3 or 4 things they give us until we find the right one. Remember, I've got a recording of me buying a house, and it was because she didn't want to take care of the lawn. Turns out, she didn't care about the lawn. It was 4 or 5 other things, some medical bills and things like that. And then we got to picture perfect, and it was one of those tiny houses on a farm. She already had the land picked out, right? So you're telling me I'm here because you don't want to take care of the grass, but you want to go in a little house on a farm, right? It's totally different. But this is where it starts. What's the problem? Why am I here? Why'd you give us a call? Very broad, very vague, but enough to get your prospect talking. It's not threatening. You're not asking too much. You're not going too deep, right? So, hey, why'd you give us a call today? That's how simple it is. Now we're going to need to, let's talk about this. What are some common problems your prospects have? When they call you or they interact, they reach out to you online or whatever, what do they tell you? Hey, what's up? What can I do for you? And you say, kind of wondering why you want to sell. What do they tell you? What types of things? Okay. Back taxes, tired landlord. What else? Too much house. Too much house.
Or they'll just say, I just want to sell, and then they don't even want to be proof.
I just want to sell. Yeah. So there's something there. Okay? Right. But are those examples of pain? You guys have seen my videos. It's not. Let's take one of those and break it down. Tired landlord. Okay, landlord for 20 years, tired of it. What's one thing that causes someone to be a tired landlord? What's one problem they have to deal with? Oh, wow. Okay, so let's go with repairs. So if a landlord has a ton of repairs, they're highly motivated, correct or incorrect? Is there pain there? Possibly. Landlord A has a portfolio that's run down, tons of repairs. But there's money he's been stocking away for it. He's got a crew who does those repairs for him. He's known it was coming. Yeah, it stinks, but do you think there's a whole lot of pain there? Why? There's no impact. No impact, right? The only way there could be impact is, well, you got, $400K in the bank. You can either repair them, or what else would you do with that money? Picture perfect question. Now there's potential pain. Okay, landlord B, same situation, lots of repairs. No money put away. He's always been the handyman. He's 73 years old and still is trying to do the repairs himself. His wife is in ill condition. A lot of pain. Huge personal impact. Exact same issue. One situation, high pain. Other situation, almost no pain. Unless you go the picture perfect route and figure out what else he could do with his money. Some of that makes sense. So problems are your potential pains. There might be something under here. Let's figure out if it's enough to make them want to take some action. Let's go to impact. So once you hear some problems, we want to test them. Say, is this going to be enough for them to sell me their house at a deep discount, basically? So impact questions are this. Here's some examples on the screen, but basically here's what impact questions are. All right, that problem, how's that impacting you? There are 1,000 ways to phrase that. I've heard people phrase it as, so what? Hey, I got a ton of repairs. Okay, so what? Well, that means, okay, well, why is that important? And they just take them down that line. What you're looking for is any impact. When you're looking for impact, how is whatever's going on, how is whatever problem they gave you impacting them physically, emotionally, financially? Is it impacting loved ones, family, friends? Is it impacting their relationships? Is it impacting how they spend their time? That's what you're looking for. If there's nothing there, if there's zero impact, you know right away there's nothing under here. I'm not going to be able to use this as leverage. I'm not going to be able to create motivation or urgency. This is not a motivated prospect. I better find another problem and drill in deeper if I want any chance at all at winning this deal. Does that make sense, everybody? So yeah, is it affecting other people? Does it impact how they spend their time? Is it keeping them from accomplishing something? These are signs of impact. That's what you're looking for. Not that I'm a tired landlord, not that there's a lot of repairs, not that I've outgrown the house. What you're really looking for is, well, how's that impacting you? So tell me this. You've been through enough of these situations. Let's put it together. Tell me about some impact scenarios your prospects might experience. What do you see out there? You buy houses, you hear problems. Well, I know some of these people you are talking to deeply, and they're opening up to you.
I just had one. The seller's motivation. The seller's motivation was just to. She had just recently got divorced. She was homeschooling her kids, and the house. She was either going to hold on to it and hope to get more money for it, or just sell it now and try to start fresh. And I basically, convinced her that starting fresh now would be the best idea. And so the way I took her, the way you kind of explained it, I just showed her like where she could be in about 2 months as opposed to going the opposite route and trying to wait for the money in 2 months and still be in the same position.
So where was she now? Tell me about that.
So No, she was in Vegas. She was still gonna live in Vegas.
Yeah, but from
Emotionally.
emotionally,
Yeah,
from an
well-
impact perspective, how was
Well,
holding
the
on to
house,
this
the house had a lot of bad memories in it. As far as her and her ex-husband lived there, she just wanted a completely fresh new start.
Anyone been in a situation like that where something's bad's happened and you're forced to see it over and over again? I personally haven't. Has anyone in this room? I hope not. If you have, oh wait, we were all young once. Some of you guys still are. I feel old. Remember that first love you had? The first boyfriend, the first girlfriend? Is there more of a hurt than when you lose that first one? Come on. First divorce, maybe. I don't know. But is there more of a hurt that exists in this world? I probably shouldn't have cracked that egg. I remember I was 17, right? I thought my world had ended. I thought it was over. And I still had to go to school with the girl. And every time I saw her, man, that felt horrible. Weekends, out of sight, out of mind. But then when you're reminded, like if something bad happens in the house, that hurts like hell. In fact, if I remember back correctly, it was Kickapoo High School here in town, and I started taking different ways around the hallway so I wouldn't see her, right? It impacted what I did, because when I saw her, it felt bad. And I took action to avoid that bad feeling. And as we go through all this stuff and as we buy houses, what you're going to find is you're only solving one problem over and over. It's avoiding pain. I don't care where it starts, tired landlord, but that's where you got to get your prospect to. Is, well, Ms. Prospect, if you got to stay here another 6 months, is it really that bad? Yeah. Well, help me understand. I know you're tired of being here and there's bad memories, but does that really impact you day to day? How? When I think about every time I pull the coffee maker off, it feels like this every time. It doesn't sound good, but really break it down to me. What's that mean? What's that feel like? Breaks my heart. That's when you get them emotional. And it's not that you're creating emotion out of thin air. You're not manipulating anybody. You're forcing people to realize what their problems are actually doing to them. You're just connecting the dots. I know you just say you got a house to sell, but we're not talking about a house to sell. We're talking about you are impacted. And the question I'm going to have for you at the end of the day is, I'll have an offer for you. Is taking that offer worth getting rid of that pain? That's the only question you'll need to answer. You have a question over here? Okay. Yeah, go for it.
So I just had an estate, 3 properties. I had it locked up last week, but they executrix was in my state, Ohio. The sisters down in Florida, both had grown up in the house. They didn't want to deal with it. Mom didn't realize mom became a hoarder, trash in the house, very emotional. Grandma's house down the street had been locked up by the mother for, 15 years. So, and there was one that was a rental, was all right. So, they were really not wanting to go back there much at all. They wanted to show it to one person, and I happened to be that person.
And good point. And sometimes impact, when you're talking about multiple decision makers, are very different for the two people, right? One person might live in the house, and they have their reasons for getting rid of it. Now the son, their personal pain is, I'm tired of dealing with this. I've got more important stuff to do than be going back and forth talking to investors and trying to get rid of this house. Solving his pain is doing this quickly and efficiently. Solving her pain might involve something else. Does that make sense? When you're talking about multiple decision makers, I know a lot of salespeople try to solve one pain where it's completely different everyone who's involved. And we'll get a little bit into multiple decision makers in a second. But those things we just discussed, is that real pain? Yeah. That's why we take action. Picture perfect scenarios. Here's some quick examples of picture perfect questions. Whoop, must not have it. So picture perfect questions, here's some examples. I literally say, paint me a picture. I literally say it, I say, listen, paint me a picture. You sell this house to me or sell it to anyone else, whoever you sell it to, 3 months down the line, where do you want to be? Why there? What would that look like? Let me ask you this. 90 days from now, you're there. Everything's moved in. You're comfortable. Your eyes open. You have your first thought of the day. How would that thought be different from the thought you had this morning? Those are the types of questions, right? You're just wanting them to paint a vivid picture. Why there? What would you do? What would your day be like? 5 minutes closer to work, is that even a difference? I'll get to 1 second. But those are picture-perfect questions. And the more people live there and they start to paint that picture, it's like sitting in that brand new car and now all of a sudden you've got pain. You want to get there because you know it's possible. Okay? Those are picture-perfect questions. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do is start to ask problem, and then test that problem. Is this really motivation? What's the impact? If there's no impact, you better find something else. And once you do find good impact, hey, this is real, this is impacting this person in some way personally, on to picture perfect. And it's never going to be as smooth as that. It's always going to be like this. Problem, impact, they'll give you a little bit. So-so, kind of stinks. Picture perfect. Where would you want to go? West side. And then you go back to impact, and you'll go a little deeper. And as you bounce back and forth, you'll notice 3, 4, 5 times deep, it gets real. Okay? You're never going to be able to say, how's that impact you? And they go, blah, here's everything. I can give you a little something. And the more you bounce back and forth, the more they're going to open up and share. And the deeper they're going to get. And you know you're going to get there when you start to hear emotional words, or you'll see emotion, right? You see people cry. It's not because we're mean people, but sometimes people have to be shown the way to do the right thing. Sometimes people are in a bad situation, and we see it, and we know we can help them, but we actually got to do something to help them. We got to take control. We got to help them see what we see. Does that make sense? So a question up front here, or actually I guess we had a question back here first. Let me get to him, then I'll grab you.
So I know everybody's a little bit different when it comes to this. Obviously you have some prospects that will talk to you and they're more open, but there's a few where, I might be able to get to the problem, maybe get through the impact, but when I start asking questions like, if you were to sell today, what would that even change, or stuff like that, they're like, why does that matter? Just tell me how much you would offer me for the house.
That's resistance. We'll cover that in about 20 minutes in overcoming resistance.
I did, but I guess it'll be covered later too.
Yeah. So we will cover that in just a few minutes here. Examples of picture-perfect scenarios, we know it, wherever they want to be. Go ahead.
Would you say majority of the time spent is in the impact section? Problem,
Absolutely.
impact, and picture perfect?
Unless they're quote-unquote fine and they're okay with where they're at, then most of it's going to be where could you be?
Painting the picture.
Painting the picture.
Of the
yeah. If they're in
perfect
high
picture.
pain,
Okay.
if they've got some serious stuff going on, it's going to mostly be an impact. How's that impacting you now? How's that impacting you now? How's that impacting you now? If there's low pain, you're like, they're okay. There's no huge distress. You're going to spend most of your time into picture perfect, what life could be like. That will create the pain, the gap in between where they are today and where they could be. And once they see that, feel it, and believe they could be there, now we've just created a highly motivated prospect.
So you skip, sorry.
Go ahead.
The question is, do you skip impact if there's no pain, and you go straight to picture perfect?
You're always going to ask impact to see if there is pain, right? So why am I here? Well, I just wanted to see what you'd get for the house. Okay, well, it seems like you're doing okay. I'm sorry, before you even go any further, I got to ask. This is a beautiful property. I know you've talked to our people on the phone. I looked over the nights. Looks like you're in a good situation. There's no need to move. There's no distress whatsoever. I'm searching for why you would even consider selling this place, right? That's how you're looking for impact. If there's still nothing there, then I'd start moving into picture perfect. Oh, hey, if you do sell this place, to me, to anyone else, for whatever amount of money, where are you going to go? Why there? Huh. Well, is that much different than here? It's just across town. Really? We started getting into it. And then you could go impact from there, right? Well, why is that side of town so much better than this side of town? Now we're back into impact. See, you're bouncing around all the time, okay? Most amateur salespeople just stop at the problem. And that's why they get it wrong so many times, because most of the time that first problem that's brought to you is not the real problem. See, do we have another question in the back here?
I'm pretty new to selling this way. The process or how long do I guess you spend trying to dig into this pain? As long as it takes, or
So usually
is
I
there
find
a-
that it's
like
going
a
to take...
set back point?
Yeah, I mean, usually, just in this specific industry for what I do, I find it takes about 20 minutes here. It usually starts while you're walking the house and building rapport, not because you mean it to start there, but the more comfortable they get with you, they'll start referring to some problems and kind of letting you in a little bit, and you start to see some problems, and you can touch on them a little bit. But usually 20 minutes is my pain conversation in this area from the moment I say, hey, is there somewhere we can take a seat and kind of talk things through? That's where I start. And I start with a very simple problem question. So, what were you really hoping I could do for you today? Sounds pretty important to you. I gotta ask why. Okay. Thanks for sharing that with me. How long have you been dealing with that? But your kids don't see any of that. They do. Jeez. What's that feel like? I'm sorry. Let me ask you this. Where do you want to go? Why there? What would that feel like? And that's how you go through it. You're just playing off what they say and painting that picture. All you're doing is helping them figure out, where the heck am I in life right now? What's that feel like? Where can I be, and what's that feel like? You know that continuum we saw on the screen with the two people? We want them to see that in their head. When they see that in their head, we've got motivation built. We can see it a lot of times when they don't, because we've been in that situation before. We go, I know what's going on here. We got to help them see it. Once they see it and feel it, then we're good. Was it another question, Lee?
Yeah, I usually go into the close like right after I usually say, hey, so what would you like to see done? You know,
Yeah.
what would you like to see done?
Yeah.
And then they just start rambling, just talking and talking. I've had a few people like, I go in like, hey, I'm gonna offer them my $50,000 or whatever, and then they say, hey, you know, they start saying how much, you know, their mom wanted for the house, and I don't want that much, and then all of a sudden they're like telling you how much they want for the house, and I think the lady, she's like, I'll even take $30,000 for the house. I was gonna offer $50,000 just by just listening and saying, hey, what would you like to see done? And it just always, most of the time, that just turns into the close, and it's like right after that's done. It's
Sometimes they'll bring pain to the table. Freaking awesome, right? But they don't all do that. What we're trying to do is replicate that, right? Why is that so effective? Well, you told me they start going through it, and they start opening up, and they start going through everything. The question is, how do we get that to happen more? How do we actually encourage that to happen? It's this questioning strategy. I mean, we love it. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say it this way, but it's good for business when people understand what they're going through, and they're in a high state of pain, right? They bring it to we don't have to do anything. They go, I know where I'm at. It sucks. Give me whatever you give me. I'm out. They've already got themselves there. You don't have to take them there. That's fantastic for us, right? And for them, because we get them going where they want to go. We help them. You got a problem, I solved your problem, win-win for everyone. The problem is not everyone's like that. So how do we get them like that? This is how we turn our fine prospects into those prospects. Does that make sense, everybody? This is how we control the system. If they're able to get there, you're going to find sometimes there's nothing there. They're a retail seller. Well, now you know. No pain, no sale, right? So why is diagnosing pain so dang important?
Build a rapport. I mean, you just have to build a relationship and deal with some of the things that other people aren't willing to deal with your customer.
Gives you leverage.
Testing their emotions, testing their emotions.
We can close the deal right there's the deal.
Those who identify their needs.
Needs, okay.
Solve the needs.
As Jim, yeah.
If you misdiagnose the pain, then you'll lose the deal.
Well, we can close on the deal, we're still found Bob, you must be interested.
ton of reasons, all of those being true. Number one, if we don't diagnose pain, how do we know what we're there to do? I've seen plenty of deals won where it's the exact same deal or even less of an offer because people felt we understood their problem more than the other person. How many of you have won deals at less of an offer and they've literally said, I just felt like you understood, like you get it? You don't get that if you don't diagnose, okay? Also, when we get to presentation, all we're going to present on is, Mrs. Smith, you told me A, B, C, D, pain, pain, pain. You told me deal killer, deal killer, deal killer. When I do my presentation, that's all I'm addressing. You want this, this, and this. Here's how I'm structuring my deal to get you there. You say you're a little worried about these things. Here's how I'm structuring my deal to make sure you don't have to worry about those things, or we minimize them as much as possible. I could have the exact same offer as the other 4 investors, but just because I phrased it that way, I'll win the deal. They feel like it was tailored to them. Just giving cash for a house. But just saying, hey, it's really important to you. You no longer have to deal with that. You're sick of this. I think I got this figured out. Here's how I'm going to structure my deal. And I know even though I can do that, you're kind of worried about time frame, this and this and this. So I want to also structure it this way so we can minimize all that stuff you're worried about. How's that sound? And I win a deal because the other guy just goes, I'll give you $85K. Okay? You got to diagnose pain so you know what problem you're even there to solve. None of us are in the house buying business. None of us are real estate investors. I'm problem solving business. If you don't know what problem you're solving, you're out of business, right? You're relying on your prospect to figure it out all out on their own. You're putting too much onus on them. Also, it's important because when you get to those things that will stand in the way from making a decision, the more pain, the more likely they will overcome their own objections. Cough syrup's too expensive, I'm not buying the expensive brand. Oh, I'm in a very high state of pain, money lost all value. It is also going to allow us to completely reframe the conversation. The conversation needs to go from, I put 20 grand into this house, so I need to get that back out, and the neighbor's house sold for 150, so I need, to get in that range. It reframes it from that into, listen, I'm going to make you a fair offer. I'm going to make you a cash offer. I'm going to account for all these things. You're going to have one question to answer. I can't answer this question for you, but I can tell you what that question is. The question is going to be, what's more important? Getting rid of pain, pain, pain. Not worrying about that with the kids and working 2 jobs and everything that goes along with that. Is that more of an important problem to solve? Or is making sure you squeeze every penny out of this house right now more important? If it's squeezing every single penny out of this house, I'm not your guy. If it's pain, 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 I can help with that, and I can help quickly. But it's got to be at a price we agree on. So my only question is pain, pain, pain even important enough to take care of? I can't tell you what's important enough. You got to decide that. That's reframing the whole decision away from money. Does that make sense? That's how every sales call should sound at the end. Not, well, let me justify this to you. A 2x4 is $2.25. We'll need this many of them, and we get logical. What happens when the brain goes completely logical? We turn off emotion. What happens when emotion turns off? We stall and we don't make decisions. It's, hey, out of all this, here's what I'm hearing. I mean, you threw a lot at me today. But basically, you've been going through this, you feel this, and that's why you want to get rid of the place, and I get that. I can't pay retail for your house. So you really have a different question to answer, and it's not really who you want to sell to or at what price you want to sell. The real question is solving all of this pain, 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 pain worth selling for even a penny under retail? That's reframing the entire conversation. That's where we want every sales conversation to go, because that's really what we're doing. Does that make sense? The houses you buy today, are those the conversations you're having, whether you try to or not? Those easy deals, those ones that are like, that was a slam dunk, is that the conversation you're actually having, whether it's on purpose or by accident? I want you to think back on the deals that you have. I mean, you tell me. What I usually find is that when I look back at my sales career, every deal, whether it's intentional or not, that was a slam dunk, they were in a high state of pain. Either wanted to get out of the situation they were in or wanted to get to somewhere that was better. As you guys review your own deals in your head right now, is that the case or is that false? Chuck?
If you don't mind, I'd like to just share something really quick.
Yeah, Chuck's going to share something. Let me get the mic.
I'm brand new in this industry. I just started about 40 days ago. There was a lead that came back with the owner of our company from like 90 days ago, and I saw he offered her $112,000 cash for the house. For whatever reason, she couldn't make a decision at the time, but the pain over the last 90 days got so much worse with just her being responsible for the overhead. There was her son and all his, her words, low-life friends living in there, leeching off of her. We ended up getting it under contract 2 days ago for 103. So it was less money, but the pain was so much higher 90 days later. She just needed to end it. So everything you're talking about, it makes a lot of sense, and that's just a good example that I personally experienced where, man, she could have sold the house for more 90 days ago, but the pain wasn't big enough yet. So.
Right, yeah, I mean, and that's just it. You just got to look at it like a balance. On one side is the pain, on the other side is the money, and the second the pain becomes more than the money, you got a deal. So how do you level out that balance? You could do it one of two ways. You can either increase the pain, or you can increase your offer, right? That's it, right? Low pain, you're going to increase that offer quite a bit to catch up, right? Your leverage is in the pain, not in the offer. And we already know when we get to deal killers, a lot of times it's not even in the offer. A lot of times, well, it's always one of two things. Motivation or pain is not high enough, or there's deal killers that are standing in the way from them taking action, right? There's things, comfort, risk, there's all kinds of things we're going to talk about here in a second today, a little later this afternoon, that will keep them from taking action. That's all there is to every deal. The second the pain outweighs the money, you've got a deal. Bang, you're done. That's why money is subjective, right? When my pain and my story got high, money lost all value, right? That's it. That's a lever you want to tweak, because you can't just keep offering more and more money. That's not a winning strategy. You'll eat your margins alive, or you'll just hit your ceiling where you can't offer any more and make a dime and you won't get the deal anyways. That leaves you with one thing. That's it. To increase deals. What is that thing? Pain. No pain, no sale. Simple as that. Would anyone go trade in their vehicle for the exact same vehicle, in the exact same condition, with the exact same mileage, with the exact same features, with the exact same payment, exact same everything? Would anyone go do that? Was there a possibly?
There was a possibility.
Why?
Tax leverage.
Okay. There's a pain you're solving, right? For the rest of us who were not as smart, yeah. No, I took two of the Section 179 deductions last year. We didn't need two new vehicles, bought two brand new spanking vehicles. You're right. We had a pain, it was our tax burden. And we bought two new cars we didn't need. Right? But for those who are not taking advantage of the tax burden or the write-off, no, we wouldn't, because there's nothing we're solving. There's nothing we're getting out of it. Why would I take any action, even if it was just an email where it said, just check this box, and we'll trade in your car for the exact same thing? We probably wouldn't even click the mouse, right? No pain. We're taking zero action. Or we'll spend massive amounts of money if we're really mad at the tax man. Right? Without pain, the only way your prospects will have to compare your offer to others is a price tag. People buy emotionally and justify their decisions logically. So let's go a step deeper. Softening statements. Softening statements do a couple things. They build massive amounts of rapport, and they help you ask all these questions I'm asking you to ask, right? You don't want this to sound like an interrogation, right? What about this? What about this? Why? If you do it the wrong way, you're going to have some people get pretty upset pretty quickly. Anyone get 2 to 3 questions in and you just ask those questions too quick and they go, whoa. Even on the phone, right? You start asking, if you get into questions about the property too quick. What about this? What about the roof? What about the windows? Hey, what's with all the questions? Right? Softening statements are what we use to build rapport, show active listening, and get away with asking a lot of questions. All active listening is, all softening statements is, or are, once your prospect asks a question or says something, before you give an answer or before you ask your next question, you simply recognize what they said, okay? Hey, I appreciate you sharing that with me, blank. Hey, I get it, blank. Hey, good insight, can I ask you a question, blank. Hey, you know, that's a question I get all the time. You must be asking me that for a reason, what is it? Hey, sounds like you've done your homework. All this does is it builds rapport by telling people you're actually listening, and it doesn't sound like a machine gun fire of question after question. We're going to use this throughout the sales call. We're going to use softening statements while walking the house or when people are talking. It encourages people to talk more. When you use softening statements, you're not adding, you're encouraging, you're just saying, I hear you, and that encourages people to talk more. Why do we want people to talk more? They'll reveal the pain, and then when we talk about building rapport, here's how that works. The more we talk, the more we like the person we're talking to. When we talk about ourselves to someone else, it increases the levels of dopamine in the brain, the chemical that kind of triggers our pleasure and reward center. And the more we feel that, the more of that good feeling we get, we associate it with whoever we're talking to. It actually is the same chemical reaction in the brain that's released or that takes place when doing cocaine, eating chocolate, or with sexual activity. Just talking about yourself to somebody else. It's the same reaction, okay? Whoever they're talking to, they're building rapport with. So how many people in this room have those friends, or for me, it's a family member, who, I remember this was being taped, so I'm not going to say who it is. So who in this room has that friend or family member who every time you get together, they talk your ear off, and they never shut up? And they don't ask you anything about yourself. You don't share anything with them. They just talk and talk and talk. Then they throw something crazy out there like, man, I've never felt closer to anybody. like, you're my best friend, right? Like, that's it. And you're like, you don't even know me. You know zero about me. Every time we talk, you gab for an hour, and then you say, hey, what's up, and hang up the phone. How can we be that close? It's because it triggers that chemical reaction. They feel good sharing so much. Whoever they're sharing to, they like. So we'll use softening statements as a very simple way to trigger that. It encourages them to talk more, okay? And it's going to allow you to get more questions in. Real simple, highly effective, right? It doesn't have to be that, hey, you like fishing, I like fishing too. Building rapport is really as simple as letting them share. Now, if you can draw some commonalities, not a bad thing to do. If you can match and mirror along with this and throw out the right body language along with this, not a bad thing to do. Okay? Those are softening statements. Simple and powerful. Everything we talk about in here, nothing's really complex. It's simple, right? This is, and if you think about it, probably everything I've already said today, you're probably thinking, I knew that. I do that. I just never really thought about it that way. What we want to accomplish here is figure out, why does that work when you do it? And now that you know why it works, can you work it in some more? Can you actually use it as a tool and start implementing it in other places? Or can you use it as a tool and tell your sales guy, when they're running into this, hey, here's a tool you use to take care of that. This isn't anything new. All of you guys already know this. That's why I bring it back to what do you do? It's just knowing why you do it and knowing why it's effective. That's your leverage point. That's what you need to figure out. It's not unusual. Makes sense. That's important. Help me understand. That's fair. Think you're right. Hey, good observation. I can appreciate that. I see. I'm not sure I understand. All softening statements. There's a never-ending parade of softening statements you can use. I can go through the first 30 minutes of a sales call, advanced agreement, all softening statements. We go to sit down at the table. I haven't shared anything, and they love me because they just told me their life story. This is all, junk is all I've thrown out there. Really? Huh. Hey, tell me more about that. That's it. 30 minutes of that, 20 minutes of that. You got a best friend. So here's how they go with your picture perfect questions, and now, or your problem impact picture perfect questions. It's really hard for me to even ask a question or make a statement without using a softening statement, so I've probably already used a bunch of them because it's hard for me not to. But here's what it sounds like. And I want you to realize this. When you go through this questioning strategy, you're going to be bouncing back and forth. And every time you ask another question, your prospect's going to talk a lot more. First two questions, they might have some pretty short answers. But as you start going deeper, they're going to get longer and longer and longer until you're asking a very short question. They're going on for 5 minutes and you ask another question. Okay? Here's what it sounds like. Hey, what were you hoping I could do for you today? Okay. Yeah, I see. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? Can you expand on that a little bit? Really? Yeah, how long have you been dealing with that? I get it. Now that doesn't affect how you spend your time though. Wow. I gotta ask, what's that feel like? That makes sense. Well, what would you do if you had that time back? Really? What else? Wow. How would that feel? Just as simple as that, right? You're just going through back and forth, back and forth. That's it. Basically, you're asking them to tell you a little bit more every time. You preface it with the softening statement. This is magic. I'm telling you, this is magic. None of this, I know a lot of you probably came here going, I want these killer closing questions and like this magical voodoo stuff. When I say this, they levitate and then they give me all their money, right? It doesn't exist. This is the real deal. This is how we encourage people to take action. This is what sales are all about. Not that, this is reverse engineered, okay? This is what works. The top performers in the world, what are they doing and why does it work? This is just reverse engineered from that. It's not do this and then we think this is what's going to happen. The perspective we take is these are the people who are doing it. Here is what they do. We know this stuff works, and if you model that, it'll work for you too. It's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. Simple to understand, but it's not easy to do when you're actually in front of someone. It's going to take a lot of practice, and that's why I want to spend most of tomorrow just running through it. Because you'll think, hey, this sounds simple. And then we'll get in a role play situation, I'll ask a question, you go, I don't know where to go with this. It's true. I mean, it took me years to believe it, number one. I'll tell you a quick story, and then we're going to probably take a break here soon. So there was one point in my sales career where I found a lot of success, and then I got pretty complacent, and then I almost quit sales altogether. I thought I just knew how to sell, and I started coasting, and my results started plummeting, and I started working more, and I was busting my butt, and I wasn't getting any results at all. And there came a point where, I don't know if any of you have seen I-44 out here, the main highway to get into town. But I remember driving to a sales call down I-44, and I called my wife, and I said, you know, what's wrong with a real job? A normal job. I put in time, they pay me for my time. Like, I'm so stressed out. You know, I don't feel like I have any control. I'm hitting all these appointments, no one's buying, people I think will buy don't. Some people surprise me, and I almost got out of sales. And I called one of my very first sales trainers here in town. His name's Brett Baker. And I called Brett, and I said, man, I think I'm getting out of this stuff. Like, I am just fed up with sales. Who's felt that way about sales? All right, so we're speaking the same language. You know the stresses I'm talking about. I think I'm done, you know, like, and so I make the decision emotionally and I start justifying it. What's wrong with being everyone else? I don't need to make $1 million freaking dollars. I can just make whatever and live comfortably. And I start justifying that emotional decision because I was sick of the pain. And I knew it wasn't the best decision, but I was like, why can't I just be an average Joe? Why do I have to want so much? Yeah. And I think so. It probably goes back to like childhood stuff, and it's probably nasty. We don't want to go there. I'll tell you.
How would that feel if you knew that answer?
I do know that answer, and it does go back to growing up poor. It does go back to being in school, putting together the Christmas box for the needy, and then getting that box at my house and finding out I was the needy, and how my friends looked at me after that. It came from being 101 pounds on the high school football team, so small they had to special order my helmet and shoulder pads, and I got picked on. It came from no one understanding what I said until about the 6th grade because of a pretty bad speech impediment that I was in speech therapy 5 days a week for. That's where my pain comes from. And that's what made me want to prove people wrong and do something with my life, right? We all have our stories. We all have our drivers. Those are mine. So that's what motivates me. I know that I can recognize it. I can see it. And I guarantee each one of you, as you sit there and you start thinking, none of us here are average people. You're all doing harder jobs, going after bigger dreams than everybody else out there. You got a bigger pain. You got a bigger chip on your shoulder. Or you just see something that's so freaking attractive, you're going to do anything to get it. Is there anything between those two things that caused your butts to be in this room today? That's it. So that's how we drill for pain. I'm 44. I got so off topic there. So I call my sales trainer, Brett Baker. I say, Brett, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, hey, man, just come in for a second. Come talk to me. He liked to talk a lot. I went to his office. I sat down. He's like, what's going on? I know he's doing the same stuff I'm teaching right now. I can recognize it and see it, but it's solid communication. So I know it's just the way he talks over time. So he started going through it. And, all right, what's going on, man? That was his problem question. Well, this and this and this. Okay, what else, what else, what else? I'm like, so I think I'm just done. He goes, let me ask you this. Will you do this one thing for me? And if it doesn't work, no problem at all. Yes is good, no is okay too. All right, what do you want me to do? Come back to my class. I won't charge you a dime. Come and sit in for 2 or 3 weeks and just see what happens. You've already decided basically you're quitting, so you got nothing to lose. Come, sit, do, see what happens. You can't go downhill anymore. Worst case scenario is you do what you're already planning to do. All right, fine. So I did it. And I realized quick that the things that I was still doing, the things that made an impact, the things that were effective on sales calls, all went back to this stuff. And I just forgot it. I got too full of myself where I was like, this is just natural. I'm not doing anything. I'm a natural born salesperson. It came from somewhere. I forgot I was using tools. And I realized that, well, the things I do that do work, shoot, I could trace them all back to these trainings I had before. I didn't even know I was using them anymore, but those are the only things I'm actually doing that makes any kind of impact at all with my career. So I fell in love with sales again. And I completely tossed myself into it, and I said, screw everything. I don't care how silly it sounds. I don't even care if I believe it. I'm going to do what Brett says to the T, no matter how ridiculous it sounds, and see what happens. I was right back up there. And I fell back in love with sales. I fell back in love with the learning. I fell back in love with everything. And haven't turned back since. That was, I don't know how many years, probably close to 10 years ago. So I almost got out of sales at one point until I realized what I was doing was this stuff. That's why I'm so passionate about it. If you haven't picked that up already, I kind of like this stuff. I get really into this stuff and I get emotional about it because it's impacted my life in ways, I can give my family stuff I never thought my family would have, right? And enjoy some stuff I never thought I'd be able to enjoy. And not worry about stuff that I thought would always be a thorn in my side, like paying the electric bill, right? Simple stuff. So that's why I'm so passionate about this. And that's why as you guys see this, even if it sounds a little funny at first, I'm going to highly encourage you to try 1 or 2 things out and just see what happens. Does it work or doesn't it? If it doesn't, you can throw it back in my face. You can make social media messages about it and expose me to the world. You can do whatever you want to with that information. make testimonials that tear me up. You can call me directly and say you suck. I don't care. But what I'm going to ask you to do is try it first before you do that. I mean, a good, honest, not like, well, I asked one impact question and I didn't get the deal. Yeah. That's not going to cut it. Okay? Let's just try this real quick. This seems easy. I say something and you make a softening statement. You say a softening statement. Oh yeah, really? Okay. Well, that sounds good. Thanks for asking. That's all a softening statement is. I'm going to say something. I'm going to ask you guys to shout one out. What you'll find real quick, what I find with all salespeople, is it's really hard. They want to answer my question right away before using a softening statement. It's going to get even harder when we get into Socratic questioning. So let's do this real quick, and then we're going to take a break and eat some cookies and fruit and down some soda or whatever else is back there. So I'm just going to shout one out, and I want you guys to shout back out at me, okay? So why are you guys here?
That's a good question.
Good. Hey, how much are you going to give me for my house?
I appreciate you asking.
Boom. Get that all the time, man, as soon as I walk in the door. But let me ask you this. Okay. How long is this going to take? Now, if you notice, some of it's really smooth. These are people who've been doing it for a little while, and some of it's just that you guys read off the screen. And it doesn't sound natural at all. It's like, I'd never say that. Like, how much are you going to give me for that house? Well, I really appreciate you asking me about it. Like, never going to happen, right? You're going to need to practice until you put this into your own words, until you get smooth with it, okay? It's going to take practice. That's why, again, why we want to do so much tomorrow and practice, or else you're going to do it once and you go, oh my gosh, that was horrible. Like, I never want to feel that again. They just looked at me like, who are you? We don't want to do that. But it's going to take the embarrassment and the practice to get there. So let's do a couple more. Well, you know what? Someone else offered me more. All right, great. So we're going to do more of those. But what you'll see is I probably spend 75% of my sales calls gibbering that stuff. And my prospects love me. I can get away asking anything I want to. There's some other tactics and stuff I use which we're going to get into when we talk about resistant prospects and going deeper into these questions. That's going to make the diagnosis a lot more effective and a little simpler. But we'll get to that after break. So guys, let's take 15 minutes, make your calls, check emails, eat some cookies, and we'll quarter till get back to it.